Alright, so this is going to be a quick sound check. That's a really bad pronunciation. This is going to be a quick sound check to make sure that my microphone is working correctly and my background music isn't too loud. And yeah, I'll start soon.
I tried everything, coffee, Pomodoro, and binaural beats, but nothing stuck until I tried this.
Hello and welcome, dearest friends of this here internet. My name's Mock, and today I am once again going to be practicing some art and reacting to videos. I don't know how long it's been since the last time I went live. But I really definitely needed to get back on. It's been a little too long. I'm trying to keep this new rhythm more consistent. Now, with this drawing in particular, I've been moving fairly slowly. Just kind of making a little bit of progress here and there. And I think, unfortunately, that is very common for me. I don't know why. Whenever I work digitally, my workflow just gets completely derailed, and it is the slowest thing just possible. If I take the time to make a small sketch, I work really fast. I can get my ideas on paper fairly efficiently, but once it turns into like actually working on a digital format, things slow down to a crawl. And I don't really know what it is. I think it's just all of the options, all of the settings that are available to me really kind of put me in a state of, what do you call it? It's like indecisiveness, that's what it is. For example, I made this sketch at work, and I did so fairly quickly. I like to sketch at work because I don't have a whole lot of time. I have probably like 30 seconds every minute to kind of do something quickly. So I did a really quick sketch in 30-second intervals. Took me, I don't know how long, maybe a couple days to actually finalize the sketch. And then I brought it home on the weekend. I colored it using some color pencils, and although it's not as refined as my digital painting here, I'm really happy with it, and maybe I can bring it into digital and further refine it. But I'm afraid that if I do that, all I'm actually going to achieve is sinking more time into this. Is that even visible? I believe that's visible, right? I think here's where it starts to get blurry. It might already be blurry, I can't tell. yeah, that's it's the difference between paper drawing or traditional drawing and digital for me. For some reason, digital really slows things down. Alright, so to get started, I'm going to be reacting to an Asmon clip. I've actually seen a lot of clips of this particular Caleb Hammer episode going around because a lot of people could not believe the things that were being discussed on that episode. And I mean, it wouldn't be a great Caleb Hammer episode if people, you know, didn't find something controversial in what was being said by the guests. So this is Asmon Gold Clips, and the video is titled "She Converted to Islam and Now Wants to Change It."
This is them talking about Islam. Oh boy, here we go.
I wasn't always Muslim. I was actually raised Catholic.
This is a highlight from Caleb Hammer's financial audit. His full video in the description.
Islam is probably the most feminist, most
Islam is the most feminist religion.
religion there is.
There is.
Very much protective of
Yes, it
women.
is certainly Middle Eastern countries that are most well known for their feminism and freedom for women.
It is.
The Middle East.
If they're practicing Islam, yes.
So you're saying they're all practicing it incorrectly everywhere, including Mecca?
I mean, if they're oppressing people, of course, yeah.
But you're telling me women are more free in Islam than any other religion?
I mean, I feel like,
I feel like, okay, here we go.
it's...
With the most theocratic regimes being Islamic right now, with the least freedoms for women and most violence against women than any other countries.
Yes.
I think that's all because of media portrayal. I don't...
Boy, that was an interesting frame to pause on. Jeez. Yeah, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Like, things are not the best for women in Islamic majority countries, and a lot of the testimonies come from women themselves. I had something else I was thinking about, and this freaking frame made me forget what I was thinking about. The hell was I thinking about? Honestly, I can't remember. I've lost the train of thought. He literally ate the train of thought.
Oh my god. Such an elaborate delusion.
What?
Yes. It's
the media.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fact that they are portraying these countries in a certain light, and that...
Okay. That's actually what I was thinking about. So, she says that the Islamic countries and Islam particularly, are very pro-women, very feminist. And I mean, obviously, we all know that that's very unlikely. I'm not going to go out and say it is untrue. I'm not going to say it's false, but it is very unlikely. And to me, I don't even care about feminism. I think that the best metric for whether or not a society and a culture is good for women is whether or not they provide enough opportunities and options for women. If your society and your culture does not offer an alternative to essentially a corporate life and a constant routine of labor and work, then in some ways that is oppressive, right? If it does not offer an alternative to the opposite, which is having to stay at home and not having the option for financial independence and I guess financial independence is the only way that I can describe it. If it does not offer that option, then it is also oppressive. So, are women oppressed in the West? I guess in some ways you could say that, because in some Western countries it is very difficult for them to be housewives and take care of their families. Are they oppressed in Middle East? Yeah, in many ways they are, because they, in some instances, they have to work on top of taking care of their family, and they're not granted the same freedoms to do so as they are in the West. In other instances, they're not allowed to work and cannot gain financial independence. So it's rough out there.
So when women had a lot of freedom under an oppressive regime that was Western focused, dictatorship in Iran, don't get me wrong, not perfect.
Yeah.
But when they had that, women could go to school, women could work, women could go outside without wearing the outfit.
You're talking about Iran?
Iran, yeah, Iran.
So women don't work or go to school there? Check your facts, Caleb. Work
you
and go to
think
school.
they have
Yeah.
the same freedoms they had before it became a theocratic regime?
And yes, women, from what I understand, do work in Iran. They do have that ability to become financially independent, but the issue is the culture. The culture, more specifically, the religious culture, which does not favor them working, and it instead favors them becoming, what would you say? I guess subservient is the only way that I can describe it, within a marriage, and it also restricts their freedoms when it comes to just personal autonomy. So that's really the biggest issue.
Well, by freedom, what is your definition? That women
By freedom, what's your definition? Okay.
can go out naked or what?
Naked? How about
I'm
just not
saying.
wearing the outfit without getting beaten? And
They get
locked up?
beaten and
Yes.
locked up if they don't
The
wear it?
morality police? Yes.
Oh, okay.
What? Yes. Again, this is not an anti-Muslim thing I'm talking about. But when you are going to come here and say it's the most feminist, in Saudi Arabia, they just got the right to drive a couple years ago.
I remember I had a friend tell me about that. He was in Saudi Arabia. He said that, well, he was my friend, so you can imagine what he said.
You would be beat in Iran if you took the scarf off.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
What, you get beat in San Diego? Is that what you were about to say?
No.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think the American government has officers around beating you for not wearing certain things.
not necessarily in that regard, but
Not at all in that regard, actually.
Yeah,
I
not
think
at
what
all.
she's saying is the media had a certain portrayal. No. The media had a certain portrayal.
What was
and
that
then she met,
portrayal?
and then she met me.
And this is the problem, is that I don't know why people go so hard to defend obvious bad behavior. This, I think, is doing so much negative PR for like anything Islamic. It's crazy.
They can say all they want. That doesn't mean they actually
are practicing
do it.
the principle.
Okay, well,
It's-
are we
it's
going to do the whole
our
thing that
control,
Christians
yeah.
do with shellfish and a bunch of shit like that?
No,
Where we
no,
pick
no.
and choose what we like
No.
depending on our world values?
No,
Because you
of
guys
course
are
not.
more Western?
No, but here's the thing. This is
Jesus.
what I'm going to say. Okay, because I think what she's trying to say is this: when we
Are you guys in
started,
debt?
we're in so much debt.
Okay, then you're not following Islamic
Uh-oh.
principles.
That's true. We're in
Damn, bro. Jeez, got him with that one. And I'm honestly not too familiar with religious practices and laws specifically, but this also applies to Christians, right? I know that it specifically applies to Muslims and the Jews, because they really frown upon the lending of money, right? The borrowing of money.
so much debt.
Okay, then you're not following Islamic principles.
Oh my God. Wow.
Then what the f*** are you going to tell me?
Honestly, I love this guy. He is so based. It's just, again, I don't have a problem with people being whatever religion they want, but like, you don't get to decide reality. You don't get to edit out reality and be like, oh no, this is actually, everybody's doing it wrong, including me.
At Cox, your internet.
And I think that's one of the reasons why people love Caleb, because he just kind of says things. He doesn't really put too much emotion into what he's going to say. He doesn't put that much weight into what he's going to say. He just kind of tells you how it is. And up next, gonna be listening to some news because I am a daily watcher of Spawnwave. I like to keep up to date with the news in entertainment, specifically video games and tech. What the hell? It's not playing. I can't hear you. There we go.
Following the DLSS 5. What's up, guys? Welcome back to news.
Jeez, the DLSS 5 reveal was so bad. I wonder what's gonna happen with that.
Newswave. So after all of the fallout following the DLSS 5 reveal and all the comparisons that are out there and the backlash from gamers, NVIDIA's CEO decided to respond to all of that, and it has not gone over well, kind of made things worse, and even brought up a whole bunch of other questions for it. We're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Crimson Desert. I believe reviews should be live today, but we did get a look at the base PlayStation 5 in action playing this game, so we'll see how that turns out. And Starfield. We were expecting a big announcement this week, and we got it. Not only paid DLC, but also free updates, and yes, that PlayStation 5 version. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, going over the world of gaming, trying to keep you up to date with the news. So even if you don't get a notification in the morning, just know there's probably a video here for you. And we're going to start today with the PlayStation Portal, as with everything that was been getting updates, apparently. This also got an update, and it'll be live today, March 18th, and in fact, we can see this over on PlayStation Blog, with the big highlight that everyone's pointing to, 1080p high-quality mode. It says players can now select a 1080p high-quality mode during remote play and cloud streaming. This new mode enables players to enjoy games at a higher bitrate compared to the default 1080p standard mode, providing a smooth and high-fidelity experience. Now, this is also going to be dependent on your connection, whether it's through your router or I guess your cloud streaming, your internet connection speed at that point. But 1080p high quality, even higher bitrate, shouldn't really be an issue for most networks. I do wonder, though, as we're kind of expecting at this time, with rumors going around, a revision or a refresh even for the PlayStation Portal, if this is being put in place for the newer OLED system, that we think it'll be like a PlayStation Portal OLED, but with a better screen and even a better like wireless chipset and connect.
I never really understood the PlayStation Portal. It seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity to me. Like, I just don't get why someone would buy a handheld that is tied specifically to your wireless connection. That seems kind of ridiculous. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And it costs so much for what it does. All it does is stream your games from your PS5 to the Portal. If it were a dedicated handheld with that ability, that would have been amazing. Even if the handheld itself was underpowered. Like, let's say the handheld could play basically PS4 quality games, but if you wanted to play your PS5 games, you could tap into your Wi-Fi network and just stream them over. That would have been great.
Connection, maybe that's what we're seeing, but I mean, it's going to work on the current one, so I'm just curious to see how much better that image looks with the streaming technology and everything attached to it. But good to see just outright upgrades being made. I mean, almost across the board. We had PSSR 2, we have the Switch 2 getting boost mode, and now even the PlayStation Portal getting an upgrade when it comes to just the overall clarity of these games. Also, we did have a big addition for NSO go live, and you can see this. It's over on Nintendo's account, saying with Eevee as your companion, fight against an evil organization using Shadow Pokemon and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, available now on Switch 2 with GameCube, NSO, Classics,
nice.
Advanced Pack members, all of this. But this is a pretty interesting game if you have not played it. I know, look, it's got...
I know a lot of people really like this game. There's a really big like niche community for this game specifically.
Gotten very expensive online. Of course, people, emulators, I get all that. But the idea here being, it's kind of an all-shoot RPG that many people, I'm sure, have not experienced because it was on the GameCube, which didn't sell the best. But this is kind of a cool game to go back and just try. I am curious to see how it'll look visually with some of the scaling and stuff that they have right now on the GameCube with the NSO application. But this is a game that I had way back in the day, and then I had to repurchase it later on. Although I got it before the big GameCube boom, so I guess I got it at a good price then. But still, definitely a unique, interesting Pokemon experience, single player all the way through, so certainly worth checking out. Now I'm sure many people are wondering, when's Coliseum going to show up? Well, probably not too much longer, since there's only, 2 games, I think, left to go into NSO from the currently announced GameCube roadmap. Oh, and we had some big news for retro fans, as GameStop, you can see here, declared the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo Wii U, which I assume means by proxy the Nintendo Wii, are now considered officially retro console.
That's weird that they didn't include the Wii. What the hell is this? They should have just said Wii and Wii U. That's crazy. They are officially retro consoles now. Damn. Let's take a look. Was the Wii the first to release? The Wii released in November 19, 2006. Damn. Literally 20 years ago. Yeah, I mean, everything 80s back in the 2000s was considered retro, so yeah. By extension, now everything in the 2000s is also considered retro. When did the Xbox 360 release, though? Release date, November 22nd of 2005. And the PS3 was not far behind. November 11th. Wait, what? I thought I could have sworn that the Xbox released first. Never mind. The PS3 actually released about 11 days prior. Oh no, I misread. November 11, 2006. Dang, the PS3 released a whole year after the Xbox 360.
And I mean, yeah, the 360 is more than 20 years old now. The PlayStation 3 will be 20 years old in later on this year. The Wii U is not quite that old, but it's getting up there as well. So yeah, I mean, eventually you got to consider these things retro. I know people look at the 360 or even the PS3, which has that is a Blu-ray player and HDMI out, and go, that can't be retro. Yeah, it can. We're just getting old. Again, wait until next year when we get to March 2027. Everyone looks around and goes, "Wow, the Switch 1 is 10 years old. We are really getting up there." And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with NVIDIA and DLSS 5, which had its grand reveal the other day, and it did not go over well. Well, okay, some people really liked it. I will say this. I was on social media and I was seeing it. I said, really? People like this? Some people do. I will say it seemed like the majority of people.
I think the people who like it are likely the individuals who can't fully see the difference in graphics when it comes to games. I think that's likely the demographic who would enjoy something like DLSS 5. The people who aren't super what would you say, they aren't super into the weeds of for example damn it, I'm completely blanking on all of the terms. They can't see the difference in frame rate. They can't see the difference in what do you call it when the edges are jaggy? What the hell is that? Anti-aliasing, that's what it is. They can't tell the difference in anti-aliasing. It's also likely the people who are, I would believe, more prone to falling for AI fakes. I think it's just overall people who don't normally what would you say, test their vision or test their ability to discern differences visually as often as those who are hyper enthusiasts.
People went, what is going on over here with Grace and Resident Evil 9, which I'm happy to see that, because to me it was jarring almost to see that change, and people are saying it's like an AI filter. Yeah, it does look like ChatGPT decided to touch up Grace.
And that's the thing, I think it literally is an AI filter, right? It's kind of using an AI algorithm to kind of figure out what details are getting muddy and what details are not being pulled forward well enough when the game renders. And it's trying its best to fill in all of those details.
In Resident Evil Requiem. But with all of this happening online, is massive backlash taking place. A lot of people voicing their opinions against what was being shown with DLSS 5. Specifically, it seemed to be around the character models. Most people didn't seem to mind the environments, and that makes sense. Again, a lot of it comes down to sort of a recognition with faces. That's one of.
I honestly think that if it's possible, the absolute best application of AI filters in video games would likely be within background rendering. If it's possible to separate like the game rendering into 2 layers and only apply the AI filter to the background, it would really help to put more of the resources into rendering the characters, and then have the backgrounds, which are, going to inherently be less graphically detailed, less have less fidelity, just kind of be sort of what would you say, have them be touched up with AI filters so that you can still sort of make out what's going on in the background. But the thing is that they are so far in the background that you don't really need that much detail. So if AI does kind of screw up on the sign of something, or if it does sort of get a couple of the details kind of scuffed, you won't notice it as much because it is more in the distance. I think that would be the best application for AI filters in video games, if that's even possible.
One of the most difficult things I feel like to do in gaming is to have like recognizable faces, but ones that also fit into your art style. But if you get too realistic, don't necessarily freak people out too much. It's a whole thing to figure out. But this DLSS 5 filter, we'll call it, hasn't helped matters much with that. Well, Jensen Huang, who's the CEO at NVIDIA, was asked about the backlash. Yeah, this we can see. This is over on Tom's Hardware. It says, at a press Q&A with Tom's Hardware at GTC 2026, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang downplayed the criticism of DLSS 5, the company's new use of AI and neural rendering to infer how certain features of games would look if they were more photorealistic. So, from my understanding, Tom's Hardware asked Jensen Huang about the response and the backlash online. Specifically, it seemed like from gamers, of course, because it's the games that were being shown off. And he says, quote, well, first of all, they're completely wrong. All right, that sounds like a man who has stupid amounts of money from the valuation of AI driving up NVIDIA. So anyway.
It is never a good idea to go against your customer base. That's insane. But as was stated, this man likely has a lot of money. He doesn't care about the customer base because, gamers really aren't the customer base anymore.
Says the reason for that is because, as I have explained very carefully, DLSS 5 uses controllability of geometry and textures and everything about the game with generative AI. Hold on a minute. It's not post-processing. It's not post-processing at the frame level. It's generative control at the geometry level. Wait a minute. DLSS 5 uses controllability of the geometry. It's generative control at the geometry level. I thought it was just lighting. That's the big thing, of course, that people are arguing now after these quotes, because it does sound like it's it's more than just lighting from what Jensen Huang is saying here. And while people are doing the comparisons where they're turning the lights on and off basically for Grace, and they're like, no, it's just lighting. There are a lot of people who are looking at it sideways and say, I don't know, parts of this, like the lips and even around the eyes and some of the parts of the outside of the face, they just look different, as in it's been altered in some way, almost like DLSS 5 is interpreting the original image or frame and then shifting and changing parts of it as it needs to, along with the lighting. And again, Jensen's comments here aren't exactly helping with this. And I mean, look, he is in a point now where he can just say, what are you going to do about it? Who cares, right? Like, we're pushing forward with this. The developers that are out there and a lot of these studios seem happy with it. So it's going to be an option in the future. And that's kind of that. Now, here's the thing. Again, they needed two 5090s in order to accomplish what they were showing us. So I'm going to assume most of you watching this don't have two 5090s on hand. I don't. So I'm looking at this going, you know what? I don't even have a 50 series card at this time. Like, you feel like if they wanted to sell me on a 50 series card, they would show me something that I go, wow, I got to go get that 5080 or something so I can run this. It's like, oh no, 259s. Now, it will, I'm sure, get better over time, as you'd expect. It gets more optimized and can run on, we'll say, consumer level cards and builds. But then it's also, do I want that effect in my games? You know, there's a whole conversation right now going around. Do we want games to be photorealistic?
And I think this goes past photorealism, because you could tell the lighting in those renders was so extreme. The details in them was so extreme that it made the characters a bit uncanny and unrecognizable from the original models and concept art. So I don't think it's an argument of photorealism. We've seen photorealistic games, and some people do like them. But this is different. This is more of a stylistic choice. Or the issue is that it infringes on the stylistic properties of the game.
That's a whole thing that sprung up after seeing this, the DLSS 5 get applied to games. And I think that's an interesting question, because eventually you do get to a position where it doesn't really look like a game anymore, and it does look photorealistic. I do think many people out there
it looks photorealistic.
like the games.
It looks like an AI rendering of, photorealism, which is not literal photorealism.
Like a game anymore, and it does look photorealistic. I do think many people out there like the games to look like games. And I'm kind of in there too, because I think art style holds up better than anything. Like, if you have a really good art style that isn't like trying to be super photorealistic, I think it can be enjoyed really well 20 years later. Look at Wind Waker. I know it got a lot of flack when it first came out, but that game still looks really good to this day. And it's because they went with an interesting, cel-shaded design, but one that has stood the test of time. That's kind of where I am with it. But for me anyway, hey, look, DLSS 5, if you like it and you got the hardware for it, it's going to be an option, I'm sure, in the future. But for me, I mean, I don't even have the...
I don't think it's worth it. If you really need that much power just to put an AI filter over your game, I don't think it's worth it at all.
Dual 5090s to run it, so I'll probably just leave that checkbox unticked. Next up, let's talk about Crimson Desert, which is out tomorrow. And I'm very much looking forward to this. Part of it is kind of the build-up, the mystery, the hype that's been swelling online, and a lot of the stuff they have been releasing, while I'm sure they're giving us the best cuts of footage and gameplay, it looks very compelling. I was not expecting there to be a jetpack shown off and revealed like a week before the game comes out, but here we
That was ridiculous. I heard about that, but I haven't actually seen it. I need to look up and I need to look into this.
Hearing about all kinds of details around how large the world is, and in some cases that can be off-putting. But when it comes down to that, the draw distance, a lot of the stuff happening all across this world, I kind of have to see it for myself just to see, okay, they actually pulled that off. Well, part of that's been, what about the base PS5 or the base Xbox, we'll say the Series X even at this time? We got footage. This is for the base PS5. We can see this. Now, this is over on Push Square, who had the video embedded here. It's coming from PlayStation Japan in its play format. So they have all kinds of graphics, and they're, of course, talking over with commentary and stuff. That's fine. They're just kind of showing the game off and really having fun with it. But it's about 20 minutes of just gameplay footage on the base PlayStation 5. And as they were going through, you know what? It looked pretty good. It's not going to look as good, obviously, as the PS5 Pro using the new iteration of PSSR. It's not going to look as good as a super high-end PC, which is probably how they've been showing this game off this entire way, right? The best possible look for it. I understand with advertising. But it was functioning. It didn't look like it was slowing to a crawl or some like unplayable frame rate. And while it was uploaded in 1080p 30, so I'd like...
Alright, so here's a short. Let's put that right here. Here's a 1-minute short that shows all of the crazy new stuff that was shown lately. That's a really bad way of phrasing it, but the things that were showcased recently. Why is this so small though?
Crimson Desert has
There we go.
jetpacks now. I can't even make that shit up. We got the launch trailer for Crimson Desert. This game's out in less than a week. I'm so excited for this. Bro, you can shoot your gun on a horse. There's a crapshoot type
The graphics do look insane. The scale is also insane.
of guy. Was it a...
I'm gonna say it. I don't like this amount of particle effects. I don't know why some games do that. They obsess over particle effects to the point where it just looks messy. It looks really unappealing to me.
You got the fire sword! Oh, this game is sick!
Like, do you really need that much particle effects just when using a whip?
Use your
grapple?
dragon to attack them. Why would you hop off the dragon? And we got jetpacks!
The particle effects are insane. I don't like it. Like, that stomp. Did that stomp need particle effects?
Off the dragon! And we got jet...
Oh, I got the wrong shot. It's this one.
Use your dragon to attack them. Why would...
Like, you couldn't just give me a nice wave, some dust. Did it really need all of this particle effects?
You hop off the dragon! And we got jetpacks! Is this a Superman game? Is this Just Cause? I swear to God, this game just looks like Just Cause in a fantasy setting.
It's definitely looking like an everything game. Like, I thought it was a fantasy game. Now it's looking like it has some sci-fi built in. I don't know what the hell is going on anymore.
What am I looking at?
Like, that genuinely looked like you were dropping from space.
What the fuck? Crimson Desert has...
Literal insanity.
I left it alone, and
No. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. There it is.
like to see some higher resolution footage that I'm sure like Digital Foundry and stuff will eventually get their hands on. It looked manageable. So good news there. It's strange that it took until this point for them to finally show footage of it running on a base PlayStation 5, but we did eventually get it. And look, again, I still think it's worth holding off pre-ordering, seeing how some of the initial impressions turn out. If you're still kind of on the fence, I'll be picking it up as soon as it releases. I'll fire up the base PlayStation 5 system, and
Yeah, for a lot of people, this is going to be like a no-brainer. They're going to get it immediately as soon as it drops. I unfortunately don't think I'll be able to play it at all. All I've got is a Switch 1 and a Steam Deck. So I don't think there's any way I can muster up enough horsepower to be able to run this beast. I mean, if the PS5, well, he said it ran well on PS5. It just wasn't as visually impressive as a PC or the PS5 Pro, right? So it seems like the PS5 isn't having any trouble with it, but I'm fairly confident that any hardware that is not on the level of a PS5 is gonna struggle. Because how can you not?
And I'll record like an hour of gameplay there and just upload it in 4K so everyone can kind of check it out from that point. But at least so far, so good. We'll see how reviews turn out, because right now people are dropping some heavy Metacritic prediction scores of like 90 plus. And if it hits that kind of a mark, that'll be super impressive for a game that has certainly a lot of pressure on it going into release. Next up, let's talk about Starfield with a free update.
Before we go into Starfield, I'm gonna be eating some dedos. Can y'all see that? Can y'all? I'm waiting for my freaking live feed to refresh. You can't see nothing. You can't see it at all. Maybe you can get a picture. Let's see. Oh damn it! I got rid of my extra tab. Give me a new window. I think it's a good enough image. Jeez, I was like, this is a good enough image. It's freaking tiny, bro. Give me advanced search. What the hell is this? Right the okay, there we go. I was just using the wrong feature on Google. I was like, when did they change that? Wait. Did they change it? I remember. Oh, tools. Size. Large, please. Is that the same freaking image I already used? There's no way that image is large. Okay, this one should actually be large enough. Damn, okay, I can't freaking view it. You know what I mean? Why am I taking all of this time and effort just for a freaking image? There you go, this thing. That's what I'm eating. In case you don't know it. So pardon the wrapper sounds real quick. Alright, now back to the video. Not this one. This one.
Paid story DLC and the PlayStation 5 version. Now, Bethesda released an entire press write-up and release for this thing, going over some of these details, as well as a near 20-minute sit-down with developers, kind of describing some of the update and the paid DLC, as well as that PlayStation 5 version. But we can see some of it here. And starting at the top, the PlayStation 5 version does launch April 7th. It'll come out as a standard edition at $50 and then a $70 premium edition. While it does come with things like extra currency and others, it will also have the story DLC, which on its own is $10. That's the Terran Armada DLC. That will be coming out April 7th alongside the PS5 version. And then on April 7th, there's also a Free Lanes update. All right, it's called Free Lanes, but it's also the free update. But here, they'll be introducing cruise mode, and that lets you fly between planets. You could kind of fly between planets before. It took forever. Here it sounds like this is going to be something where they kick you into warp drive and you get there faster. And so you'll be able to kind of transition between planets without having to do the hyper jump or anything. You just kind of fly there if you want. And while that's happening, you can turn on autopilot. So the ship will fly to the planet you're aiming it at. It'll slow down when it gets into orbit, so you don't have to worry about crash.
All right, so that's pretty insane that they staggered the release for Starfield. It's all. Jeez. I'm joking. Bless me. It's only just now coming to PS5. When did it freaking release? Because Starfield didn't wow enough people. I feel like with a game as underwhelming as that, you would want as many people to get their hands on it as possible, like right from the jump. They released, oh shut the fuck. All it's telling me is a PS5 release date. Come on. I want the there it is. 2023, bro. It's been 3 years. I was thinking it's more like 1 or 2 years ago. 3 years it's been out, and it's only just now coming to PS5. That's complicated. That's difficult because a lot of people were underwhelmed by the game, and it hasn't exactly gotten praise. So how many people are anticipating that PS5 release now?
Crashing into the planet or something, but then you'll be able to kind of walk around your ship and hang out with your crewmates or do any other activities, decoration and stuff while you're flying there. So that's kind of neat to let you sort of multitask in that regard. There will be new space encounters. They say there's X Tech that lets you customize your gear further, as they also outline a new legendary rank for gear, and you can bring items with you in a New Game Plus without spoiling anything. The New Game Plus is probably the best feature of this entire game, certainly the most creative feature that I've never seen any other game do before. It's just kind of the way that they've set this whole thing up with the story.
I mean, at least that's the good thing, right? They're adding new features, they're adding new content. If you want to basically experience everything that Starfield has to offer, you would kind of jump on that PS5 release if you have a PS5.
Storyline, it all makes sense with New Game Plus being completely canon with it. Here, though, you'll be able to bring items with you into a new run, so that is actually a pretty big upgrade, because otherwise you lose like literally everything. But that, along with the PS5 version, I don't know if this is going to be an all of a sudden like a resurgence for Starfield. I'll be kind of curious to see how it does on the PlayStation 5. It's still Bethesda. It's still a big game for them. The story DLC sounds interesting enough. They didn't really give too much away, and why would they? It's story DLC. They certainly want to keep some surprises there. But at least that at $10, it's not like egregiously priced. Still wondering about how long it could be. Shattered Space didn't go over well. Wasn't a great piece of content necessarily. So maybe expectations going into this should be somewhat withdrawn here. Keep it within check, all right? So I'm hopeful for Starfield, but I will also say, man, there's a lot I'm playing.
Freaking Windows updates are so loud and so annoying
right now, and it's going to be tough to get back to Starfield to check out the new content or even the PlayStation 5 version. Still, though, good for people on PlayStation who are hoping to get this game eventually and be able to go through it, and good to hear about all the free updates that'll be happening for longtime Starfield fans who are still playing the game and will just, I guess, get a whole bunch of new content to explore. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Xbox Game Pass games to close out March and start up April. We can see this. This is over on news.xbox.com.
Alright, so quick side note, I freaking, I don't remember what this hand is supposed to look like. I remember having an idea for it, but I don't remember what it's supposed to look like, and I don't have the original sketch. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to see much from a photo of it. So I was hoping that I could actually find the sketch so I can kind of make out what the hell is going on there before I erased it. But I don't know where I left the sketch. Like, I don't have a freaking clue.
Available right now, they have Gabby's Dollhouse Ready to Party. That's Cloud, Xbox Series, and PC. Moving up to March 18th today, we have South of Midnight. That's going into Game Pass Premium. All right, it was already in Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass. We have The Alters, same deal there, joining Game Pass Premium. Moving to March 19th, Disco Elysium, Cloud, Xbox Series, and PC. That, of course, going into Ultimate, Premium and PC Game Pass, so hitting all tiers with that one. Moving up to March 24th, we have Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Cloud, Console, Handheld, and PC. That also is hitting Game Pass Premium here, alongside the other tiers. Then March 25th, we have Absalom, Cloud, Xbox Series X, S, and PC. Again, Game Pass Premium. Moving to March 26th, Nova Roma. That's a game preview release on PC through Game Pass Ultimate PC Game Pass. March 30th, we have The Long Dark. That's Cloud, Console, and PC. March 31st, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. April 2nd, Barbie Horse Trails. And then April 2nd, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 will be going into Game Pass Premium. Moving to April 7th, we have Final Fantasy IV, Cloud, Xbox Series X, S, and PC. This is something they've been doing where they've been slowly dropping in all of the classic Final Fantasy games from that recent collection that Square Enix released. But still, it's kind of cool to see them just come out in succession, you know, as you go along. So you could have started with 1 and worked your way all the way up through now to 4. So yeah, 5 and 6 also will be on their way. Not a bad way to close out the month, though.
You don't feel like getting up,
I
going
don't
out,
feel
or
like
working
listening
out?
to
Sounds
this
like you don't feel
ad.
like much of a man anymore. It's
Thank you.
With Game Pass, especially if you're a Game Pass Premium subscriber. I mean, there's dropping a lot of these games from Ultimate into Premium. I'm still curious what the path forward is now for Game Pass. Of course, we know things like Forza Horizon 6 coming up, and there should be a whole bunch of games dropping for Xbox this year with Gears, Halo, and Fable. I'm more thinking about going into next generation if they have plans to change or alter Game Pass. So we'll see, I think, as we get into 2027. At least for now, though, it seems like the road's starting up for Microsoft with their 25th anniversary in November, starting with Forza coming up here in May. For now, though, again, not a bad way to close out the month. I'll be curious to see what they have for us with April. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, what do you think about the character models after NVIDIA DLSS 5 has been applied? 80% just say it looks bad. Okay, 20% though say it looks good, and that's what I mean. There are people out there who, yeah, they like the way that it looked, whether it's like the style of it, the lighting. My thing with that though, as I've been looking at these comparisons more and more, it sort of feels like there is just a spotlight or like a 3-point light system from film or something, always following the character around. Like it's all.
Yeah, and it's that that AI training. A lot of AI generated images for some reason favor really intense, high contrast, what would you say, dynamic lighting. And so I've noticed that with those NVIDIA renders, it literally did that exact same thing for every character, regardless of the lighting within the scene.
Always, it's just off camera pointing right at them, and when you're seeing some of these scenes, it seems unnatural, because that's just not how it is in life, like in a realistic setting. So when Grace is walking down that dark road at the time, and there was lights around her, street lights and stuff, it looked like it was almost just like there was a spotlight off to the side blasting at her to put all those lights on her face, where if you saw someone actually walking down a dark road like that, a street, it would probably be more muted on their face. So that's the thing right now. It's adding light so that its existence makes sense in the first place. So that's why I think it's so strange when I see some of these comparisons. It's like I kind of feel like it looked more realistic the first time, whereas the second time it just looks more cinematic. That doesn't necessarily fit into everyday life that they're trying to mimic in this game. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Dejosh, who says, it's like NVIDIA thinks we were asking for an Instagram or Snapchat filter. Yeah, I see that a lot. The Instagram filter. That's what's happening here, where you take a picture and oh, well, you know what, let's just go ahead and make this very, very cinematic and dynamic looking with a press of a button. And that's kind of what they're doing with DLSS 5. Now, apparently there's more levers and stuff in the background for the developers to use. It was interesting, though, that Jensen brings up geometry and all kinds of stuff even outside of lighting, when the big push has been all about the lighting. And it's like, wait, hold on. Are we sure? Is there other stuff happening? Because that's like complete polar opposite of what they were originally saying in the press release and description for DLSS 5. And, well, I mean, I tend to take the CEO of NVIDIA's word for it when he's talking about NVIDIA stuff, but that's just me. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you wanted to check out that Nintendo Switch 2 boost mode, where I did go through and do some comparisons to show exactly how much better it's making some of these games look. I'll leave that in the video right below. Thanks, guys, for
Definitely subscribe to Spawnwave. Like he said, he covers basically video game software and hardware news really consistently. Basically daily videos about all kinds of interesting topics. So he's a daily watch for me. As soon as I wake up, Spawnwave is the first thing I watch.
watching, and I'll see you next time.
Nope.
In case you're new to this channel, you're gonna need...
And this is Max. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Durat? Sounds kind of like an insult. He's not a rat. He's Max Durat. And this is a video titled Why Nier Automata is the most profound video game ever made. I have a feeling like I've already watched this before. But it wasn't a year ago. It was several years ago. So I don't know if I watched like a previous upload that he did and maybe he refined it and re-uploaded, or if I just watched an entirely different creator, but I thought it was him. So I'm gonna check it out, possibly again.
In case you're new to this channel, you're gonna need some context. Back in February of 2019, I put out a video titled The Most Profound Moment in Gaming History. The moment in question was a scene at the end of Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. Naturally, with a declarative title like that, I was going to invite people who disagreed with my choice and wanted to propose either an alternative moment or game that they felt was more profound. In the interest of being intellectually honest, I wanted to play as many of the games that people suggested and contrast them with Metal Gear Solid 2, to see if there was a game or a moment that might transcend it. I have spent the past 5 years doing that on this channel, and during that period, I have not encountered a single moment that I believe is more profound. But I have encountered 2 games that I feel were more profound on the whole. One was the original Deus Ex, which I believe is the most important game ever made, for both its prescient story and the way its game design influenced so many games that came after. However, if I'm speaking just about profundity, I do place one game above Deus Ex, that of course being Nier Automata. While I have publicly expressed this belief once or twice over the past 5 years, I've not qualified that belief as comprehensively as I would like, and now I think it's time to make my case. First, I think it's worthwhile establishing a commutual definition of profound, because that word can mean a lot of different things to different people. In my case, I draw upon the Merriam-Webster definition of profound, meaning to have intellectual depth and insight, although I personally add the adjective emotional to that definition. So when I define a game as profound, I do not refer to its overall quality. I strictly refer to its insight into emotional, philosophical, and other intellectual matters. Now, I do not believe that Nier Automata is the greatest in any single one of these categories. I do not believe its content is more philosophical than games like Disco Elysium or Planescape Torment. I do not believe it is more intellectual than the aforementioned Deus Ex or something like Xenogears. I do not believe it has the same emotional highs as games like Shadow of the Colossus or The Last of Us. But that said, I do believe Nier Automata is the greatest accumulation and balance of all those and other categories. In short, Nier Automata takes the entire corpus of existential philosophy and distills it into parabolic form, making the core ideas of that philosophical tradition accessible to every type of person. Granted, This distillation forces Nier Automata's examination of these ideas to not be as expansive or as complex as they are in games like, say, Pathologic 2 or the Talos Principle. Nonetheless, the core meanings of these ideas, along with their often emotionally gut-wrenching content, are preserved, despite their simplification. The reason why Nier Automata invokes so much existentialist philosophy is because, at root, the game is trying to answer the most important philosophical question of the past millennium. And it makes this attempt by throwing every existential idea at it like the pods shoot energy balls. It is a spiritual question that we continue to struggle with in the present due to its intellectual and emotional difficulty. And it's one we must come to a consensus on soon, for if we don't, our reality could see its reflection in this game. I will lay out that philosophical question and the various genius ways in which Nier Automata attempts to address it, but before I do, a quick word on spoilers. The first half of this video will be spoiler-free, save for a synopsis of the game's story and setting. I will give ample warning before I go into the second half, where I detail specific characters and storylines. If you have to dip out, make sure to bookmark this video and come back to it when you're done.
I was about to say, damn, I was anticipating like a 2-hour, maybe 1 hour breakdown. And then I look at the time, it's only a 30-minute video. I'm glad it's only a 30-minute video, because otherwise I might be stuck here for a while.
In order to outline the depth and scope of Nier Automata's core philosophical question, we first need to go back roughly 400 years. There was a time in the Western world when publicly questioning or criticizing religion was a crime punishable by death, but the sole reason was not due to a baseline fealty to God. One of the biggest reasons was a belief that doing so was deleterious to the fabric of society. I believe that the English Lord Chief Justice of 1676, Sir Matthew Hale, summarized this argument best when sentencing a blasphemer to death. To criticize religion was to undermine the laws of society. What he meant by this is that Western civilization's social cohesion rested on a belief in two core things. One is that humans were flawed and broken, but the second is that by trying to emulate God, specifically the ideal set by Jesus Christ, one might redeem their flawed nature. This was the meaning of life for centuries in the West.
And there is something to be said about not just the questioning of religion, but the questioning of laws in general, and the questioning of the order in general. It does break down the order. So when someone does criticize and question, we really need to be careful about how we do so. I'm familiar with an analogy that sort of touches on this topic, but I don't know it well enough to recite it word for word. But basically, if your town or your village has a structure, a wall, a road, a building somewhere, that you specifically or particularly find odd, and you think to yourself, well, why is this here? Why here specifically? Why is it that we need this here? Is there any need for it? Is there any requirement for us to have this here? And because you, in your limited scope, in your limited viewpoint, cannot find a justification for it, if you ask for it to be torn down, if you ask for it to be taken away, you risk eliminating a vital part of the systems that might be integral for the structural stability of your society. And actually, there's an even better way of phrasing this without confusing myself and others. What organ? There's recently been some discoveries done on a specific organ within the human body, but I don't remember the name of it. So, when human beings were exploring the human body and all of the organs that make up the human body, certain organs were found which we could not find explanation for. We couldn't find uses for them, and so they were at the moment declared to be vestigial, to be unnecessary, and so certain ailments and difficulties that arose from these organs would normally be treated by simply extracting it or taking it out completely. And then eventually we realized that actually these organs did have a very pivotal role in the human body. We just didn't have the knowledge to understand what that was. Let me see if I can find specifically the organ that I'm thinking about. Right, I think it was the appendix. For a very long time, people thought that you didn't need your appendix. It was just basically an outdated organ that we no longer utilize due to the change in our diets. But it's recently been discovered that the appendix may hold a essentially a reservoir of gut bacteria that can help regulate your body. So if your body ever sees a great disturbance in its microbiome, the appendix has a reserve of that good gut bacteria isolated from the rest of the gut that can then go in and sort of repopulate your gut with all of the good bacteria. And now people who don't have an appendix have essentially given up that ability. They can no longer repopulate their gut microbiome efficiently. So with all of that said, in a huge tangent, it is always very important to question thoroughly. If you do have questions about the validity of a system, a tradition, a structure, a piece of your society and of your culture, if you ever question, you need to have an open mind, and you need to essentially try and make the case for that thing that you're questioning as best as you can, and utilize as many examples and as many what would you say, I think I'm just overwording this. If you ever do question something in your culture and your society, you need to try and validate it first before eliminating it. And if you cannot find a means of validating it, that is a problem. Because nothing ever just kind of arrives for no reason.
The meaning that enabled people to contend with life's immeasurable suffering. But in the next few centuries, seeds would be sown that would inevitably uproot this philosophy. The Reformation was arguably the first of these seeds. In case you don't know, the Reformation was an intensely conservative religious reaction by a segment of Christians against the Catholic Church. Though it was a movement motivated by many factors, particularly what was perceived as corruption within the church, I will focus in on the one reason most relevant to Nier Automata. The segment of Christianity that would go on to define themselves as Protestants retaliated against the influence that the famous Italian priest, Thomas Aquinas, had on their theology. Specifically, his attempt to marry Christianity with the Aristotelian spirit of reason. The Protestants, led by Martin Luther, believed that God had absolute sovereignty over our existence, and any attempt to introduce reason into that would undermine God's plan. This, alongside many other reasons, led to a theological split between the Catholics who embraced reason and the Protestants who did not. For the next century and a half, the Enlightenment philosophers who embraced reason warred over whether or not it should be married with faith in a higher power, or if reason negated the existence of God entirely. Philosophers like Spinoza and Diderot believed that a radical embrace of reason alongside a negation of God would be the foundation of the West's new social order. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant and John Locke, though believers in reason, were skeptical about the human capacity to operate purely on reason without God, given our inherently flawed nature. This ideological divide would become exacerbated by the political revolutions that characterized the era, like the French Revolution and the European revolutions of 1848. Radical rationalists saw these revolutions as a concrete expression of social progress, while more conservative thinkers saw the bloodshed of these wars as proof of the insufficiency of reason. As the philosopher Edmund Burke argued, humans have neither leisure nor knowledge sufficient to reason right. Will not honest instinct, prompt, and wholesome prejudices guide them much better than half reasoning? Then came the coroner of this ideological war, the one whose philosophy sits at the foundation of Nier Automata, Friedrich Nietzsche. He, a famous atheist, determined that the fruits of the Enlightenment and the advent of science had killed any credibility that religion once had, particularly of Christianity. Thus, he made the famous proclamation that God was dead and we have killed him. Though some who adopt the Spinozian spirit saw this as a positive, triumphant declaration, Nietzsche was far more pessimistic, even displaying sympathy for the likes of John Locke's perspective in this regard. Though he felt that humans would have to create their own values in a world that was devoid of God or meaning, he didn't think that we would be able to do it, due to our inherent imperfection. Thus, he predicted in his book, The Will to Power, that attempts to craft our own values would result in bloody conflict, a prediction that came to frightening fruition in the 20th century. This is an incredibly basic overview of an enormous philosophical problem with no universal answer, and yet, Nier Automata boldly decided to build its world and story around it.
Everything that lives is designed to end. We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse? Or some kind of punishment? I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle, and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him.
These opening lines are a perfect summation of this ideological conundrum. It encapsulates the resentment that arises from this need for God to give meaning to life's suffering, despite the fact that this God, if he exists, remains invisible and silent. In his absence, one has four choices. One can continue to seek God, one can seek symbolic revenge against God by destroying his creation, one can die, or one can attempt to create their own meaning. Nier Automata uses its story to explore these 4 options, showcasing their merits and deficits. Not only are these arguments easily digestible in their parabolic structure, the game's story writer, Yoko Taro, introduces an element that provides innovative insight to this philosophical problem. Instead of having humans debate this issue, he has robots and androids debate it 10,000 years in the future. The year is 11,945 AD. The remnants of humanity have been living on the moon for the past 5,000 years. Their current circumstances were spurred by the arrival of an alien race that attempted to wipe out the human species, which they did via the creation of antagonistic machine life forms. Roughly 200 years after this escape to the moon, the humans launched their counteroffensive. They created an elite military force of advanced androids to fight on their behalf. However, since their initial pushback in 5204 AD, they have yet to break the stalemate between the alien-created machines and the androids fighting on humanity's behalf. For the first half of the game, we play as 2 androids, one named 2B and another named 9S. In their journey to destroy the machines and save humanity, they will interact with various allies and enemies, most of whom are dealing with their own existential woes and trying to solve them in their own way.
Oh, come on, PlayStation. Nah.
Usually by echoing the philosophy of an existentialist or a prominent figure from the Enlightenment era. Before I analyze those characters and the ways their philosophies are showcased, I do want to add a couple of extra thoughts on the game's presentation and setting. It is very typical of Yoko Taro to use opposing elements in a game in order to provoke the gamer to think. In his first directorial effort, Drakengard, he would take common action game tropes and flip them, like make our supposed heroes villains, or have the characters constantly chastise us for killing our enemies. In the first Nier game, the story would frame certain events in order to make us perceive them one way, and then introduce information later that betrayed that original perception. This trend continues in Nier Automata by telling a story about androids and robots as a way to comment on humans and their nature. Their attempts to emulate or interpret human thoughts and behavior are done clumsily, often to humorous effect. This immediately puts the gamer in a philosophical mindset, making them wish they could interject and either suggest the correct way to behave or at least an alternative. However, there will be times where the game challenges this desire to interject by introducing a philosophical conundrum that has no clear answer. Then, in our attempts to provide an answer, we end up struggling in a way that is equally as clumsy, which in turn breaks down the divide between man and machine. Ultimately, a game about mechanical life forms becomes ironically one of the most human games ever made. Finally, I just want to comment on the way the game's world fosters that aforementioned philosophical mindset. Taking a page from games like Journey, Dark Souls, and Shadow of the Colossus, there are many times where the game will provoke feelings of depressive isolation as you run around its desolate, dilapidated world. As the soft, ambient music plays, you cannot help but reflect on why the world around you ended up the way it is now, what philosophies led to its destruction, and what part your beliefs might play in its future. Though your journey through the barren landscape might not invoke the peak emotional highs from those aforementioned games, it does foster some of the best transcendental meditation that you can receive, be it from a game or any medium. At this point, I would like to detail the ways in which the game's various characters address the game's underlying philosophical question. But before I do, I will issue that promised spoiler warning. If you have not played Nier Automata, please do not spoil for yourself this unique, masterful work of art.
I have played it. I don't know if I finished it. I reached one of the endings. I don't know if it's the the best ending though.
Please pause this video and go play it as soon as you can. Taking a cue from a deeply profound game like Xenogears, most of the character names in Nier Automata are references to real-life philosophers and other intellectuals. And just like Xenogears, sometimes those references can mean absolutely nothing or absolutely everything. In the case of machines like Hegel or Marx, their names reference the German philosophers George Wilhelm Hegel and Karl Marx, but their respective idealist and socialist philosophies bear very little, if any, impact on the game's overall story. However, machines like Simone, Kierkegaard, and Emmanuel are very relevant to the game's main theme. Now very quickly, before I explain why they are relevant, I do want to make one last comparison to Xenogears. Though that game is an undeniable masterpiece, its attempts to reference various complex ideas from various subjects did make it too ambitious for its own good. Though it fulfilled most of its ambition, I do think its true depth is probably lost on people who do not have a basic grasp on psychoanalysis or esoteric religious traditions like Gnosticism and Kabbalah. In contrast, Nier Automata focuses mostly in on just philosophy, and distills a variety of complex ideas into a mostly accessible form, all while not compromising any of their majesty. The best way to set things up is with the story of Emmanuel. One day, 2B and 9S encounter a kingdom of machines in the forest. This kingdom broke off from those warring against humanity and the androids, wishing to pursue their own destiny. Initially, this kingdom...
And I'm not providing a whole lot of commentary, but I mean, this stuff is just interesting to listen to, and I don't know what to say. I just don't. But in any case, to comment on what I'm drawing, I figured out kind of what I wanted to do with the hand. The hand is done. I'm mostly happy with it. I think that's the best that I can do with that hand. I've continued the sketch. I was being a bit intimidated by continuing the sketch further because I wasn't sure if it was going to turn out well. And I think that's the reason why it takes me so long with digital art. Something about it feels much more definitive, much more final. So if I mess up, it almost feels like it's, you know, that's it, that's the end. The finalized piece is messed up. Which is actually the opposite, because with digital art, well, you have the option to go back and fix things. But that said, right now, because I am being a bit overwhelmed by the sketch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the opacity of what I've been working on. Actually, let's do this first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this arm, right? I think I can safely say that the face is pretty much done. Like it's final. So I am... Is there an option to cut? Yes, there is. We're gonna cut. And we're gonna... I'm sorry, paste. Good. Create a new layer. We're gonna hit done. I'm going back to my original layer. And I'm gonna reduce the opacity. That way I can keep track of it. But if I mess up, it won't impact that original layer. So now I'm gonna be working on this new layer. I can still see what I've done previously and use that as a reference. But oops, that's not what I wanted. There we go. but if I sketch all over it, you know, I can just hide it. So yeah, back to the video.
Was established by a robot named Ernst, who ruled as king for 128 years. One day, Ernst dies, and supposedly has his consciousness transferred into a baby robot model. The robots of the Forest Kingdom expect this baby to grow just like a human does, but after another 128 years pass, they finally realize that the baby is not growing. Huh, really? Took you a century to notice that? The name Immanuel is a reference to the aforementioned Immanuel Kant, and in this case, his philosophy of the thing in itself is being invoked. To Kant, he believed that human beings were unable to perceive the world around them as it actually is, due to their inherent imperfection. In effect, they could only create semi-corrupted representations for themselves, but never truly perceive the thing in itself. Like I mentioned before, this is one of many examples of the machines trying to understand and emulate human behavior, but clumsily doing so. They are unable to perceive the robot baby as it truly is, thinking it is just like a human baby that will grow. Though we see the error in their thinking, we are not so different from them, in that our understanding is also limited by our imperfect bodies and minds. Now, if perception is limited, one can logically infer, as Kant did, that this applies to human reason and the ability to create one's own values. This view is justified via many characters in the game. In the case of the character of Simone, she tries to give her life meaning by beautifying herself in order to garner the love of a robot named Jean-Paul, a striving that was antithetical to the feminist beliefs of the philosopher she was based on, Simone de Beauvoir. In the case of the character of Kierkegaard, he promises his overzealous religious followers that they will become like gods through rituals. This was the exact opposite of the real Kierkegaard, who, though an ardent Christian, was against collectivist Christianity and dogmatic rituals. On and on, every character fails to create their own values through reason, as Nietzsche believed we needed to do. Ironically, one might reason from this, as Kant, Locke, and Burke did, that reason without God to guide us is insufficient. Though Nier Automata makes a strong case for that, it makes an equally strong case for the opposing argument, and the primary exhibit is the character Pascal. He is named after the French proto-existentialist Blaise Pascal, who is most famous for his philosophical argument known as the wager. Pascal likens belief in God to a sort of coin toss. Either God exists or does not exist. He believed that it was better to believe God exists and act as if God will judge you for your morality upon death. That way, when you die, you will go to heaven if he does exist. If he doesn't exist, then you will lose nothing upon death. To believe he doesn't exist when he does would, theoretically, equate to an eternity in hell. Though this seems like a reasonable argument at first, Yoko Taro quickly eviscerates it when applying its logic to an artificial consciousness. Unlike with humans, a machine's consciousness would not go to heaven upon death, because their mind does not share a theoretically divine link to the natural world.
So dark. So cold.
The inference from this is that there is no transcendent reward to acting morally in this life for a machine. So, what is to stop them from giving into feelings of resentment and murderous hatred when life gets too painful? This question is explored with the robot Pascal. He was a pacifist machine who, like the members of the Forest Kingdom, split off from the warring machines in order to pursue peaceful coexistence with the androids. Though this peace is maintained for the majority of the game, it is upset when the leaders of the androids infect their troops with a logic virus, causing them to become mindless yet more effective berserkers when making a final push on the machines at the end of the game. this logic virus spreads to the machines and causes them to attack one another. Thankfully, Pascal manages to save a selection of child machines from the virus and...
Bro, this helps explain so much. The game does not spell things out for you. It gives you the story, and it gives it to you in various viewpoints, and you really have to be paying attention to be able to piece things together. This really helps to sort of understand what the hell was going on. Okay.
And others infected by it. But when Pascal returns to the child machines, after successfully fighting back the infected, he discovers the most horrifying thing imaginable. All the children ran themselves through, out of fear of what might happen if the infected machines found them. But the horror of the situation and the despair it brings Pascal are not the worst parts. Rather, it is the guilt Pascal feels for teaching the machine children the concept of fear. Their fear brought them to despair, and that despair made them end their lives. With this unimaginable pain, Pascal decides he cannot go on living. So, he asks the player to either kill him or wipe his memory, which you can either refuse or accept. Now, it's easy to say if you're religious that self-termination out of despair is a sin. Even if you aren't religious, it's easy to say that the moral choice is to find a new meaning to strive for. But in that moment, when the ones you love lie dead before you, and you feel overwhelming guilt for this occurrence, those principles easily become negated. Especially when you're a machine whose actions theoretically have no religious consequence. In times like these, one can see the utility that a belief in God could have to keep somebody from giving in to despair. But when that God is silent, when that God does not show you a way to deal with that unbearable emotional burden, then the temptation to curse God and his creation becomes too great. In the worst cases, that resentment takes the form of revenge against God. For Pascal, that revenge was self-termination, but for others, it can be mass slaughter. In the case of the character 9S, he suffers 2 existential blows that put him on a murderous crusade. Later on in the game, he uncovers unsettling information, which suggests that the Council of Humanity on the Moon was established by the android military, when it should be the other way around. When he confronts his commander about this, she casually and quickly confirms the information's validity, leaving no time for 9S to make the logical deduction that humanity has been extinct for thousands of years. But why the lie? Well, if you don't have something to fight for, to strive for, then what's the point of going on living in this war-torn, miserable world? And now 9S, somebody who has fought his entire life for humanity, finds out that all his efforts were for naught. Worse yet, when he goes to tell 2B, the android that he not so subtly had strong feelings for the entire game, she is mercifully killed by the android A2 after she was infected with the logic virus. Naturally, having his 2 sole reasons for living eliminated in the same day was too much for 9S to handle, and he figures the only way he can justify his continued existence is killing as many machines as he can, as a symbolic form of cosmic revenge. With these various characters, Nier Automata illustrates the impossibility of this philosophical conundrum. One can try to create one's own values without God, but the game shows multiple incidences where this goes wrong on account of human, or in this case, mechanical imperfection. But embracing God's existence has its own problems as well, and can lead to things like zealotry or a misinterpretation of gospel, or resentment at God when the pain of life becomes too much to bear. Ultimately, the right choice forever eludes us, and if there is a god who cursed us with this cryptic puzzle, the confusion and pain that arises from seeking an answer in vain would be enough to make somebody want to kill him. Though there are other games that tackle this type of existentialism in very powerful ways, games like Soma, Pathologic 2, none of them manage to cover as much ground as Nier Automata does, while also making the ideas accessible to a variety of audiences and preserving their intense emotional difficulty. It is a comprehensive yet paradoxically simple summation of centuries of philosophy, all within a parable about machines. But I think the best thing of all is that the game was bold enough to be honest about the problem, to acknowledge that neither side of the debate has an all-encompassing answer, and furthermore, it trusted that the gamer would know how to respond when all the information was given to them. At the end of the game, when the androids and machines are all dead, the credits will begin to roll. At this point, you can engage in a minigame where you can try to shoot all the names in the credits while dodging incoming attacks. Quickly, the gamer will realize the literal impossibility of shooting all the names without dying. When you do die, messages will pop up on screen. At first,
I do remember this.
These messages will taunt you, asking you to accept defeat or admit that your actions are meaningless. But after a few attempts, you will begin to receive messages from real people, real gamers from all over the world, encouraging you to keep going. If you choose to continue, the gamers who came before you will lend their data in the form of extra power, enabling you to defeat all the names in the credits. Before the game ends, you are offered the chance to help somebody else in the way that those other players helped you. But in order to do so, you have to sacrifice your save data. If you're inclined...
I could not do it. I did not sacrifice my save data.
To do this, the game will remind you that this will be a thankless act. The person you are helping might be somebody that you would intensely dislike if you met them. Still, you are invited to make a loving, compassionate sacrifice for a complete stranger. After playing a game that made you stew for so long in the misery of existence, in the possibility that life truly is meaningless, maybe life is nothing but pain, with no transcendent purpose. But in this moment, you can choose the one thing that might have the power to transcend even that potential reality. And as simple as it might seem, that thing is love. No other game has made me feel as much despair or as much hope as Nier Automata did. For that alone, I would consider it the most profound game of all time. But there are all the other aforementioned layers, amongst others that I wasn't able to fit into the flow of this video. But at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. I invite all of you to continue to argue for alternative games in the comments section below. But please, we're all video game fans here. Please be civil and constructive with your comments. Please give this video a like if you liked it, that helps me out a lot. And make sure to check out either of the videos you see on screen now for more Nier-related content. Until next time, remember to stay safe and stay yellow.
That was a really good video. Just what the fuck am I saying? Subscribe to Max Tourette because
in case you're new to this
makes...
channel, you're gonna need some context.
What the hell? There we go. He makes great videos about the philosophy and yeah, I think that's it. The philosophy of video games. Why do I keep trying to add so much? Let's see what else he's got. He has videos on games like Shadow of the Colossus, Drakengard. What the hell is Drakengard? Oh, I think that might be Unicorn Overlord. Jeez, I can't sneeze. has a lot of videos on RPGs, and a lot of philosophy and spiritualism. So he's
Head
a
like
really
Plato,
interesting
Of
watch.
course, it's safe.
Should I watch the plastic head or should I watch the demon poster? I might not have time for the demon poster.
From Chinese beauty filters to the world of shadow clone makeup, how about we start modifying our heads as well? Yes, I'm serious. We're getting set back 1,000 years at this point. Now, Chinese beauty culture has always had a thing for baby faces. And this isn't new. You open Douyin or Xiaohongshu and it looks like everybody downloaded the same character preset. Big
True.
eyes, small face, completely...
I mean, I wouldn't know, but I think we have a similar issue here in the West. Everyone kind of just copy pastes other people's looks.
no pores and a nose that looks so small that it's like it's trying to hide from you. Men and women alike are all chasing that. Technically, I'm 24, but you know, I look like I just got picked up from a kindergarten class aesthetic. Now, digital filters don't harm your physical body, right? It just messes up your entire view on beauty standards. But what if we crank that to the maximum threshold and start putting plastic in our heads to look, you know, a bit more alien? Welcome to the Chinese influencer obsession with the so-called high skull beauty. If you've been doom scrolling on Douyin, you're gonna see many influencers bragging about their head wrapping face proportions like it's a Pokemon evolution. The concept is simple. If the distance between your hairline and the top of your skull is longer than the distance between your eyebrows and your hairline, congratulations. You've unlocked the ultimate proportional face. Just looking at it, it's a piece of art. Your head will be considered high, and once your head is high, your face will just...
Bro. I can't with these, bro. They butchered that that character creator preset. That's crazy.
It's a piece of art. Your head will be considered high, and once your head is high, your face will just magically look smaller. Ah yes, faces just exist only to be compared to other body parts. Disregard anything else. Of course, it's all about the angles, and this entire thing is basically an illusion just to trick you to think that you're chopped. They'll tell you it's a way to look younger, and it's completely normal and definitely safe. I mean, stretching your head like Play-Doh, of course it's safe. Now, it did start at the safer end, mainly with hair tutorials promising extra volume at the crown. Many influencers promoted headbands and foam pads, pretty much to just push your hair a bit more forward and higher. But let's be real for a second, the problem was never about having a flat skull or a big forehead. It all started because people were saying, if your head isn't high enough, then your face is big. And if your face is big, then you look old. And if you look old, you failed. Especially for influencers whose entire income depend on their appearance. Put the fries in the bag, little bro. And that's where the solutions came in. And by solutions, I mean injecting filler into your scalp so that your head becomes inflated like a balloon. The most common method being pushed by influencers is injecting hyaluronic acid directly into your head. And hyaluronic acid isn't like some evil substance, okay? Like, we use it, I personally use it in skincare, and everybody else does too. It essentially hydrates your skin. And here's the thing that they don't tell you. This is temporary. And also, your scalp is massive, so you need way more filler than you think to really make a big difference. And way more is an understatement. Now, there's this viral case about a beauty influencer who really wanted a high skull, and they ended up, sit with me here, having around 50 syringes of hyaluronic acid injected into their scalp. At first, everything seemed fine, and that's how most of these stories start, by the way. A couple of months later, she posted a video where she removed her headband and revealed a massive bald patch. She was crying on camera, explaining how that she'd gone for a crown lift filler 2 months earlier after she started watching face-to-head proportion videos. And a month later, her hair started falling out in clumps.
2个多月之前吧，我刷到一个大白，他在讲头脸比例容貌的焦虑的驱使吧，我种草了，专门赶去上海用了高颅顶，就是在头顶的这块位置。刚开始的时候没有太大感觉，只是觉得有一点红肿，然后痒，会起白屑。运动的时候都会觉得有种神经被拉着的感觉，容易头疼。我以为这是正常的恢复的过程，然后1个月之后我就开始掉头发了，慢慢的出现斑秃，并且一发不可收拾，到现在越来越严重。而未来3到6个月我可能都长这样。再加上我的职业因素，可以说生理上的折磨是一部分，但心理上的痛苦才是。
And the doctors believed that her hair follicles entered dormancy because the filler caused tension and restricted blood flow. In other words, your hair was basically fighting for its life. She eventually...
Damn. That's screwed up, bro.
They got the fillers dissolved, and then the doctor said that because there wasn't any permanent scarring yet, her hair might regrow back. Might. Okay, but what if we remove the temporary part? Because apparently injecting like 50 syringes into your scalp is clearly not extreme enough. And
Yeah,
this is
nope.
where our beloved material, cement, enters the chat. Well,
Yo.
bone cement, okay, not like concrete. Now, bone cement is a real medical
Okay.
material used in actual reconstructive surgeries. You know, the kind performed by licensed surgeons for medical reasons. Not so your face can look 3% smaller on Douyin. But here, bone cement is being marketed as the ultimate high skull solution. Absolutely no maintenance, and it's a permanent fix. Now, I was gonna explain exactly how this procedure works, but it is just so gruesome, so I'm just gonna put it in simple terms. They essentially open a small part in your scalp, inject the bone cement, and mold it like Play-Doh so that it fits properly. And then it starts to quickly harden and solidify, which then becomes permanent. Congratulations, you have a helmet in your head now. And around mid-2025, a 29-year-old woman from Jiangsu paid around 180,000 yuan at a beauty salon to achieve this perfect high skull look. Not a hospital, a
Dude, that head. Damn.
1,000 yuan at a beauty salon to achieve this perfect.
Bro. Jeez. This is what they look like, alright? This is what they look like. Bro. That's some crazy stuff. I don't even think I made it dramatic enough, honestly. That's crazy. I don't even understand the ears pulled forward either. Like, that looks ridiculous. Y'all need to stop.
Perfect high skull look. Not a hospital, a beauty salon. I mean, that's already insane. She said that she always hated how her forehead looked for a very, very long time, and eventually she found out what bone cement filling was, and she knew that was the answer. Because obviously when you don't like your forehead, the solution is to drill into your skull. So she goes through the exact same step-by-step procedure I explained earlier, but according to some reports, this beauty salon apparently used staple-like clips to, you know, close the gaps. Instead of like actual medical material.
骨水泥全过成第二弹，这就是放在脑子里的水泥。先来一个造型设计，半个小时做完了，现在出门去吃饭。赛小寒都啥都不。
What is this voiceover? Is that her voice? She sounds old.
With Keratin Color by Schwarzkopf, create your next hair story and forget about
Bro,
breakage.
I'm not even
With our
a
professionally
woman,
inspired
bro. I
bond
don't
enforcing
color my
system.
hair,
Get
bro.
rich, striking colors on
I
all hair
don't
types.
care.
Schwarzkopf Keratin Color. What
I love
story
how
will you
YouTube
tell?
thinks that I'm somewhere between like a woman and like an old man. All of my ads are either beauty products, fashion, or pee-pee pills. And I'm like, bro, my pee-pee works fine. What the hell?
The entire procedure took about 20 to 30 minutes. That's a very fast procedure, first of all. She left with a bunch of bandages wrapped around her head, smiling. I'd expect her to be like, you know, maybe a bit nervous or like, this is kind of scary, you know? They're like literally opening your head.
Nah, she was having the time of her life.
But no, she said that she'd wish she'd done it sooner. And people were shocked. Netizens quickly pointed out how having bone cement filling into your like head is, you know, asking for permanent brain damage. Not only that, but the short-term effects can easily disrupt blood supply directly to your scalp, as well as baldness, of course. And people question how a beauty salon was even able to do such a procedure that is basically head surgery. And of course, a lot of people ask the most obvious question. What happens in about 20 years? Does it get removed? What if beauty standards change? Am I just stuck with 2026 high skull aesthetics forever? And trends change fast.
Pointy
And I mean,
head is wild.
am I just stuck with 2026 high?
That
Stuck
does
with
not look
2026
good.
high skull aesthetics forever? And trends change fast, and I mean extremely fast. Today could be high skulls, tomorrow it's something
Yo, these people don't look like humans anymore.
else. Now, do you guys remember this girl? Yeah.
Yo, those ears got me fucked up. That is too much. That is too
Have you
much.
ever noticed something odd about their ears? So there's this huge elf ear trend where influencers are pretty much showing off their ears that are protruding outwards unnaturally to make their faces look smaller. It's pretty much the same idea, just a different body part. One influencer that went viral for this procedure was Chin Xianen. She posted about her elf ears on Weibo, sharing the before and after photos, pretty much saying that the injections behind her ear made her face look smaller. We can see from the before photos, her ears were barely visible from the front when her hair was tied up. After the injections, her right ear pretty much just jutted outwards like it was trying to run away from her face. Now what's especially ironic is that protruding ear jutted outwards
This one though,
when her hair was tied.
this one's not that bad. This one particularly is not that bad. The other couple of
After
cases looked really bad though.
the injections, her right ear pretty much just jutted outwards like it was trying to run away from her face. Now what's especially ironic is that protruding ears used to be something that people got bullied for, and now it's rebranded as an aesthetic. You just slap on this cute little fantasy name to it and now everybody wants it. Some netizens with natural protruding ears even joked, "So my ears that I've had for over 20 years are finally fashionable?" And because there's always somebody who takes it too far, our male celebrity here, Xiao Chaye, literally implanted rib cartilages into their ears to achieve the look. So
For what?
essentially at this point, we're just swapping body parts like Lego pieces.
能贴出10万的效果，但你做不出来。我身边
Yo, this don't look normal. This does not look normal.
很多人做了精灵耳的假模体，往回缩了，尽量是10万的耳朵，横着贴，你把耳朵上，你把耳朵背后出来了。
And all these wild beauty procedures were marketed so hard by salons to the point where pretty much the trend outweighed all the risks. And that is exactly how aesthetic poids works. You're shown the rewards and not the consequences. Which is how we end up with people drilling into their heads because Douyin said that their faces would look smaller. Now on the bright side, not so bright, but fillers can be dissolved and your hair might grow back. But bone cement? That's not something you just grow out of. It's literally growing inside of you. You're permanently locking your body into an online trend that may just exist for like maybe half a year. And this brings us to our final boss, Lisa Yo. This girl got famous for
Yo,
transforming
Lisa.
her appearance so hard that not even her friends and family recognized her. She openly obsessed over Korean and Chinese celebrities and, well, clearly, as you can tell, she just went all in. Multiple major surgeries, pretty much all aimed to look like this idol aesthetic. And transformation is an understatement. Her new face didn't carry any resemblance to her original features. So if you lined up old and new photos,
Bro. I don't understand. People get like 2-3 things done. They look fine. They look normal. Then they get 5-8 things done. They start to look real different. And then somehow they think, you know what? I need more. What the hell?
together, you would literally think that these are two completely different people that have never met. Netizens quickly pointed out her extremely high and overfilled forehead, as well as a noticeable raised back of the head. It's pretty obvious that her eyes, nose, and mouth all had been worked on, and every exposed part of her skin had pretty much been altered.
I tried Korea's latest beauty obsession ear fillers, and the results are shocking. If you've seen my TikTok about the ear tapes, you already know the look everyone is going for these days in Korea. After trying out the tapes and loving the result, I decided to get fillers to make my ears bigger. everyone is going for these days in
That
Korea.
forehead,
After trying on the
bro.
tapes and loving the result, I decided to get fillers to make my ears bigger. Then I headed into the treatment room and met Dr. Jong. First, I got a small anesthetic shot to reduce any pain. Just look at the difference after doing one side. Oh my god, the trend originated from China where people get this type of fillers a lot. And now a lot of Koreans getting it too. Honestly, it was totally manageable, just a little discomfort. My before and after. I'm obsessed.
Now, stories came out that she was actually a mixed race of Russian and Mongolian, and that she was bullied in school for having these Asian features. After moving to South Korea, she decided to completely transform her identity, and even deleting all the old photos and videos of herself to completely just try to wipe her traces off of the internet of her previous looks. Now, what makes this especially dangerous is that it's
I don't
mainly
know.
targeted for
I'm fucking confused. These are 3 different people.
Asian features. After moving to South Korea, she decided to that she was bullied in school for having these actually a mixed race of
Is an entirely different person.
Russian
This is
and
not the same
Mongolian, and that
person
she was bullied in school for
as-
having these Asian features. After moving to
It
South
is.
Korea, she decided to
And
completely
it's not the same
transform
person
her
as
identity,
this.
and even deleting all the old photos and videos of herself to completely just try to wipe her traces off of the internet of her previous looks. Now, what makes this especially dangerous is that it's mainly targeted for an audience of regular people, just like me and you. Not everybody is a celebrity with loads of money or many options they can pick from. So then they start comparing the prices, filters, or surgery, temporary or permanent, you know, except all of this is pretty much an illusion. Because your face didn't shrink, your skull just got higher. So without any angles or any other beauty filters, in real life, it just looks unnatural. You're essentially just trying to morph yourself back to the primal age, as well as putting a baby filter on your face. So what happens when a lower skull becomes cute again? Or maybe even round faces come back into fashion? Like, are people just supposed to sand down their skulls back to normal now?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever look in the mirror and
Sand
think
that
that
skull.
you're not enough, just remember, there are people out there spending hundreds of thousands of yuan to reconstruct their head shape because an influencer told them to. And honestly, if your biggest problem is that your forehead is too big, you're doing just fine. Stay human, stay recognizable, and for the love of God, please don't set us back another 100 years.
Now we need to go back to Monkey.
Belgian waffles, American style. Saint-Pierre, eat avec respect.
No! How much time do we have now? Oof. No time. Last time I didn't watch this one either. Huh. Oof. Alright, let's see. What do we got? What do we got? I might just have to leave it for later. Damn. Yeah, we're just gonna leave it for later. And right now, what can I add to just kind of pass the time? You know what? There's nothing. Ooh, there might be one thing. Let me double triple check here. Bless me once more. I'm gonna see if there's any news on Iran. Bless me. I probably should not have had that dedo. Let's hear this update from Liberal Hive Mind on Trump and NATO.
Hey guys, welcome to
Come on. Hello. What? Me be... There we go. I couldn't figure out how to freaking move the tab. But I got it to work.
The Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day brought to you by FiveMind.com. This president, man, I mean, he is truly something else. You know, obviously nothing has changed over the last 10 years. There's this constant push from the TDS crowd, the media class. It's always the same damn thing. You gotta dump President Trump. He's crazy. It's time to turn on President Trump, they say. His base is abandoning him because he's so out of control, yada yada. They repeat it like a mantra, hoping it eventually becomes reality. But the funny thing is, the exact opposite keeps happening. They want me to ditch this president. I mean, this is the guy that I'm supposed to be so offended by. I've been betrayed. I can no longer stomach it, and I have to come to terms that President Trump is a failure. Give me a freaking break. And every single time as they're blah blah blahing with their anti-Trump TDS nonsense, in comes Donald Trump speaking for himself. He gets in front of the microphone, and time again, he reminds people exactly why they supported him in the first place. You know, I'm supposed to be getting cold feet, I'm supposed to be pushing away from him, but every time he addresses the public, the exact opposite happens. I end up sitting in my chair and watching and thinking, you know, there's no better person for the moment. And that's exactly what happened today. Trump goes full Giga Chad mode during a press conference with Mike Johnson and Susie Wiles. Again, my support for this man is totally reinforced as he doesn't address us with a bunch of vapid, empty political speak, but rather gets to the crux of the issue time after time again and says the things that no other president would have the balls to say. In other words, he says the frickin' truth and tells it like it really is. I'm feeling very reinforced in my support of President Trump once again today, and let me show you guys exactly why. Let's break down his latest press conference. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so the topic here is NATO allies and their support in terms of helping us secure the Strait of Hormuz. And well, let's just say President Trump isn't exactly holding punches. It started with this absolutely hilarious moment as Trump engages in a little bit of trolling when it comes to Emmanuel Macron in France.
Have you been speaking with the French President Macron about the coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I have spoken to him. He's been on a scale of 0 to 10. I'd say he's been an 8. Not perfect, but it's France.
You know, again, the left points the finger at this stuff and they say, is this really what you voted for? Is this what you support? And time again, I see Donald Trump speak and I think, yes, this is exactly what I support. In fact, this is exactly how I feel and exactly what I'm thinking almost every single time. And you know, that's the thing with President Trump. He's a breath of fresh air. You know, these people who've got a freaking stick shove up so far up their ass. Of course, I get it, they could never appreciate a comment like this, but to me, it's perfect. I've been waiting my entire life for a president who actually tells the truth, who doesn't just engage in these diplomatic political niceties, but rather sets the frickin' standard and tells the damn truth. And that's exactly what this whole press conference was, just truth bomb after truth bomb. After addressing France, which has been a relatively good actor in this case, he then steers his attention to all the nations that have frankly betrayed us.
Done a great job, and when we want to know, do you have any minesweepers? Well, would rather not get involved, sir. I said, for 40 years we're protecting you and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor. Very few shots going to be taken because they don't have many shots left. But they said, we'd rather not get involved. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that that was said because I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries because I know that we'll protect them, and if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us. I've just known that for a long period of time, just like I knew about the Strait, that it would be a weapon. We have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there. Many of them would not be there. We're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country. Some have been very good. One or two have been great. I'll tell you who the great ones are at the right time.
And again, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is exactly what I want the President of the United States to be saying. This is exactly how I feel about the supposed international community, right? This supposed Western coalition, Western allies. Supposedly, we're supposed to have each other's backs, but that isn't the case at all, and President Trump proves it time and time again. This is why his actions during his first term on NATO were so incredibly important, and frankly, I don't even think went far enough. They take and take and take, but when it's time to give, all of a sudden their pockets are frickin' empty. It's an absolute disgrace, especially considering the circumstance. I mean, don't even take my word for it. Take it from top EU official Mark Rutte.
So when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him. And I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. And why do we need each other? I tell you. First of all, because also the US needs NATO. And the US is not only in NATO to prevent a mistake after the First World War, not to re-engage with Europe. And then again, the long arm of history reaching out to the US again in the Second World War, as Churchill famously said in his speech in 1941 in the US Congress. They are also in NATO because for the US to stay safe, and by the way, Arctic region is evidence here, they need a secure Arctic, they need a secure Euro-Atlantic, and they also need a secure Europe. So the US has every interest in NATO as much as Canada and the European NATO allies. But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are pleading for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. Good luck.
Exactly right. If anyone thinks that Europe can defend itself without the United States, you're dreaming. And like I said earlier, it's just absolutely refreshing to see this president absolutely torch the entitlement of these European governments who have spent decades hiding behind the American security umbrella. But then when push comes to shove and it's their turn, the American government is there for everything that they need, their every whim. It goes even beyond military protection. I mean, look at the last 4 years.
Yeah, we can't. It's unsustainable for the US to be footing the bill for military protections, policing, and yeah, I'm counting those together, not separate. Military, policing / protections, and then on top of that, various subsidies when it comes to economic trade, and not get anything out of it. The fact that the other NATO countries are not contributing financially as much as they should is very worrisome. Very worrisome for the American economy and for their own economies, because that means that they are not sovereign. They are reliant on American-backed protections, and likewise, on the contrary, America is only wasting its time and money, and for what? Like, what exactly do we gain from it?
Basically funding their war against Russia, over $300 billion of grants, and most of these nations that wag their finger and condescend down to America, especially when it comes to all of their fancy socialist programs, the only reason they could afford to fund those programs is because they don't actually need to fund their own socialist programs. The only reason they could afford to fund those programs is because they don't actually need to fund their own military defense. They are totally dependent on American economic strength and military strength, straight up carrying them for decades upon decades. And now here's the president of the United States requesting backup, and you got countries like Spain and others giving him the middle finger. You gotta be freaking kidding me. And of course, it brings you to the question that Trump keeps raising: why exactly has the United States been subsidizing all of this for decades? Why are American taxpayers naysayers funding the security architecture of half the world, while those same countries lecture us politically and refuse to stand shoulder to shoulder when shit hits the freaking fan. Well, I'll tell you, it's really moments like these that tell you who your friends are. And according to Trump, that's kind of been part of the purpose. You know, the reality is, we don't need Spain. We don't even need the UK or France. All of these nations have totally depleted militaries. They don't spend money on defense. They have American military bases in their countries, American military infrastructure that protects them. The purpose of this request for support, I think, was a test. Let's see who our real friends are. And boy, do we get some very clear answers here. Now I guess it's time to act accordingly based on the information that we've gathered. Now's the time to achieve foreign policy success, to shut all the naysayers up, and to officially cast these fools on the wrong side of history. And frankly, at least in my view, to start making some adjustments into who we choose to defend and who we choose to leave frickin' dry. You know, sure, the government of Spain is making this big ordeal, attempting to counter President Trump, but you know, I really wonder how long that would last. If all of a sudden they were hit with another 25% tariff, if all of a sudden we decided to stop subsidizing their defense. Absolute entitled fools. We've clearly identified who's on our side and who isn't, and we should act on that information. You know, what's the purpose of having these strategic security alliances if it only goes one way? America constantly answers the call, is always there, is always funding. For what? To get a middle finger in the face as a response? It's disgraceful, especially in a moment like this. You know, the operation has kicked off. Now is go time. There's no turning back. And what's needed now is a true global coalition against the Iranian regime. What's needed now is a projection of absolute strength, getting the job done and doing so ahead of schedule. And while full support from the EU isn't necessarily a prerequisite, it certainly would help. And it certainly is the right thing to do considering the historical ties and relationship. And also, I believe it's the right thing to do in terms of nipping this in the bud immediately, finishing the job that was started, but instead, many of our allies have decided to leave us out in the cold. There's no forgiving that, folks, and I hope people truly remember this moment, especially if the operation is wildly successful in the end. If that's the way the story is written, at that point, every single ally that told us to pound sand should have a very clearly visible asterisk next to the term ally. They're allies in name only. And President Trump and future presidents should take that into deep consideration moving forward, at least in my view. Once again, Trump is totally vindicated on the, quote, international community, on the scam that is NATO. It's a one-way street, folks. It's a complete and utter insult. And at this point, they should fund their own freaking war in Ukraine. Anyways, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? It's not beneficial to the US. And with that, I think that concludes my session today. I am just going to move this. There we go. And what else? What else? Gonna move this one as well. Just to make sure the swatches are still there for reference, but aren't in the way. What else? How are we on time? Technically still have a couple of minutes. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my brush. We're gonna get that hair color. We're just gonna fill this in. flip it, do the same. Shut up. I know. I'm out of time, but trying to do a little here and there. All right, good enough for now. And that's where we leave it. I think it's turning out pretty well. Oh, jeez. Move the mouth and I did not change the color. Or move the color along with the mouth. We'll just have to fix that later. It's gonna take some work. So that's that. This is the stage at which I'm at currently. And I think it's coming out well. I'm liking the colors. Unlike other times when I really struggle with color, I feel like I've done pretty well here. I'm gonna start closing all of the crap I have open. And I'll be back next time. Hopefully that means tomorrow, but unlikely. Maybe later this week, maybe next week. I'll still keep trying my best to be consistent. So until next time, thanks for watching.